governance on the African continent. What advice would you give to your fellow leaders and to all those who are gathered here?
Well, I think words have been spoken across Africa, across the world. It's about time now we translated all these words into action. We need to take our people seriously, the people that we lead, respect them enough to appreciate that what they feel, what they say must be listened to and heeded. And they want peace, they want stable environments, they want predictable environments, they want their livelihoods to be served. They need access to services, access to affordable internet. They need these. They need digitalized economies that bring efficiencies and bring them on board and place them front and center in their country's development agenda. This is what it's about, shorn of all the frills and embellishments. It's about the lives and livelihoods of these people, real people, people of flesh and blood. We need to serve them, serve their interests. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. A round of applause, please, for our panelists. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'd like to invite the President of Austria, the Angolan President and Chairperson of the African Union Commission to please join our panel on stage for a family photo. Please join us, please. We've been talking about how the African continent shaped the markets, not today, not in 10 years, but today. As we see this shift around the world, we're talking about tariffs, there's a shift in alliances as well. What do you see as the most important step that we need to take as a continent today in order to be not just a follower, but a leader now in shaping these global markets?
Thank you very much. I noted that the discussion has started and many things might have been said, and I might repeat or not necessarily maybe address the issue, as they were also, I understand, introductory statements. But first, thank you for giving me this opportunity to be one of the panelists. Now, coming to your specific question as to what Africa can do in order to push the market, Africa has already done something, and Africa is just in the process to implement what they have already designed, worked on, and decided in order to push the market. And that has come when Africa has adopted and operationalized the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, which makes Africa to be one big market. And that big market is not just a market to receive, but it's a market to produce. Now, with Africa agreeing and working on the value chain within the African continent, it is positioning herself to become the hub for goods and service production. Yeah. It's a common knowledge that Africa is host to some of the critical minor resources, and many of them, if not all, are important in the area of technology, but with reference to communication technology. Now Africa working together as a team and work on those critical minerals, add the value to them, then it will be an attraction for the world to relocate their operations so that Africa's natural resources should not continue
Right.
to leave the continent unprocessed.
Right.
And then in that way, they are shaping the market.
Indeed.
And they will become a world-class market continent.
Yeah, we have talked about that, Madam President. A round of applause, please. Let me just pick up on one more thing you've said there. Namibia, your country specifically, is becoming a global hub for green energy, hydrogen and renewable energy right now. How can Africa take ownership of this clean energy future instead of once again becoming just an exporter, as we've said, of these raw energy resources? How do we take ownership and move forward, especially when it comes to clean energy?
Yeah, earlier on, I talked about Africa's natural resources, and I referred to minerals. But Africa is one continent that is also blessed with sunshine, and in some parts, very good wind. And these are the resources that Africa can use in terms of generating energy, which is clean energy. But we have also to know that being where we are as a continent, in terms of development, as much as we will become the lead in the clean energy, we need really to have a fair transition to the clean energy, because there are quite many areas that we still have to develop our economies, and with the clean energy still at the initial stage, that a lot of studies still is required for it to feed the industries. Africa will still need to depend on the conventional energy that will take us to clean energy. To mention, when you talk about clean energy, it does not just come in a way that there is no other energy that has to be used for you to produce that clean energy. Now, with the green hydrogen, hydrogen, we all know that is a product that has been in the market for a long time, only that it was being produced through conventional energy.
Right.
And the green hydrogen is only telling us the solar, the wind, and to a certain extent the wave, in order to produce that hydrogen.
Yeah.
So basically, it's just part of the package for the development that we are looking for in the continent.
Understood. Thank you so much, Madam President, for that. Your Excellency, Sulayem, let me come back to you on something you said earlier about capital, and that is, how do we attract those long-term investments on the African continent? Global investors often see Africa through, a lens, the risk lens, if you will. And so based on your experience, I wanted to ask you perhaps what stories and examples should be highlighted differently in order to attract these long-term investments into African markets.
Thank you very much. In the last 2 decades, we invested $3 billion. And in the next 5 years, we're going to save another $3 billion. That's how much we believe in the economy in Africa. And I tell you, something interesting.
The flow of capital. We know for a fact that borrowing and or financing the African continent is extremely expensive, unduly so, disproportionately so, especially if we take into account the fact that prospects for default in relation to these African economies are much lower than other parts of the world, as a matter of fact. And so we need to approach the issue of mobilization of finance slightly differently and appreciate that it would serve the world economic agenda better if Africa was availed affordable finance. And this is something we need to deal with. The second is that it takes entities such as DP World, which have shown so much faith and confidence in investing in Africa, because it debunks certain myths, misconceptions, certain presuppositions about the African continent. And so when we hear real life examples given by the likes of DP World that are actively involved in Africa and that have positive stories to tell about Africa, we believe that others will be enthused and encouraged to come and participate in Africa. And so capital must find its way into Africa because it faces the best prospects of improving the lives and livelihoods of real people and also getting returns on whatever investments are brought. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Puti, your thoughts about that. How does capital find its way into Africa to improve the lives of the young people that you're talking about, that youth potential that exists on the continent?
The capital is there in Africa. That's the reality. It is about ensuring that that capital is invested on the African continent. And to ensure that capital is invested on the African continent and not so much in other markets, we need to ensure that governments and private sectors are working together to create a conducive environment. So when we look at regulations in whatever sector, it needs to be creating an environment where it is conducive towards investment. And so that is one area. And then there are a number of other issues, but what we need primarily is a closer relationship between the private sector and government. And then we need to just deal with a number of issues which are really articulated very much in the African, in the AFCT. We have a lot of, work that has been done to ensure that we are dealing with a lot of the challenges that we face as the African continent. But the reality is that it is about implementing a lot of this.
So Puti, if you had one urgent piece of advice to policymakers, what would it be? The most urgent reform that they need to unleash Africa's private sector, as we've said, as a global market shaper. What would that advice be? I'm asking you because we're almost coming to the end of our conversation, and I want to ask everyone, what the single recommendation is as we leave this panel today.
Create an environment in your country where tech entrepreneurs can be able to develop their businesses without constraints, be able to do so as people of that country, and do so in a manner that doesn't limit them, so that they're able to scale their businesses beyond. And then you will have the ability to attract the capital that you need, because foreign capital comes in to markets where it can grow. At the end of the day, all of us with capital have investors to account to. And so what we are looking for is the ability to grow the capital that we have. And so just create the environment for us to come in without a whole host of regulations so that we can be able to do that, push the businesses. And then once you have significant businesses, then you can be able to regulate because you have big players and you have a reason to be able to do so.
Madam President, I'll ask you for your recommendation as we conclude our conversation today about one piece of advice you would have for everyone here today, the investors, the leaders, the private sector and so on how to make Africa the leader of markets today. What would it be? And also, I wanted to ask you, as one of the few female heads of state on the African continent, what role must women and young people play in this leadership in shaping Africa's markets?
Maybe I will start with your last question.
Okay.
As to the role the young women and women in Africa, including African leaders, can play. African young women and women need to intensify the trade role they have played in the continent over the years, and to bring it to match with the current world trade order for them to make a meaningful contribution to the trade within the continent and beyond. As you know, historically, if you go back to the African history, you will find the role women have played in trade. Well known in some corners as market women. That is trade. So it just needs to be brought into dealing with the global trade in the context of widening women participation in the economy. Coming now to the question as to what advice, I can say what is required is that we need a fair and balanced international financial system that should not discriminate between Africa and the other continent in the globe. And then also, we need fair trade rules. They should not be rules which are meant to put Africa on the bottom of the ladder. But we need world trade rules that is to benefit all the citizens of the world, including Africa, thus enable our continent to play its role in the world economic order.
Thank you so much, Madam. Her Excellency Netumbo Nandi-Ndaitwah, President of Namibia. Thank you so much. Thank you, Madam President. Thank you. Please take a seat. Thank you. Thank you so much. We're going to let you catch your breath, and then I'll come to you in a second. Puti, please continue. I was asking you about artificial intelligence.
Yes.
And how we become not just consumers of it, and as is the case right now to a certain extent, but also the creators, the originators of AI.
Absolutely. It is important that we are real players in terms of AI. And the best way for us to do that is ensuring that we're providing support to our tech entrepreneurs in them being able to develop their businesses, for them to become sellers online, for them to become real players. So whether it's through different products that they're selling online.
Thank you, Africa, Mama Africa. Oh, yeah. You make African great. Thank you, Africa. Thank you, Africa.